Hi everyone, you've decided to change careers to become a Scrum Master. Fantastic, congratulations, that's what I did a few years ago. So you think, right, what does it mean to be a Scrum Master? Well, I've passed the PSM1 qualification, I am ready to run some stand-ups, I'm ready to run retro, sprint planning, I can make updates to Jira, and I'm going to make sure I follow that Scrum guide. In fact, I've turned it into a checklist and I'll just go through every day and make sure I check off everything. Good or bad? Terrible, because that is not what a Scrum Master does. That is something which is a byproduct of what the Scrum Master does. Okay, so what do I mean by that? Really, what a Scrum Master does is guide teams to high performance, building that trust and psychological safety, and at the same time shielding the team from any distractions to help them grow. And that set of statements that I made there are linked very much to the initial set of statements, because by doing the latter three statements, you end up doing the first three statements. But again, like I said, it's a byproduct. So let's have a look at that in a little bit more detail. So one of the things that you do is you try to listen in between the lines. Okay, listen to what isn't said and you pick up on those things. So for example, let's say a developer, you're in stand-up and the developer says, well, I guess I'll pick up this task. You could leave it at that, or you could actually delve further into why. I guess I'll pick up this task. Okay, that doesn't mean picking it up in a nasty sort of way, okay, with the developer, but in terms of just questioning that, probing that statement a little bit more. What do you mean by that? Or can you explain, is that going to be an issue, or is there something that's preventing you from taking that task up? Because it might be the case, actually, the bit that they're working on at the moment, it's suddenly turned into a bigger task than they thought it was going to be. And so when you say, okay, this is the task that we've got to work on next, John, can you pick that up? And they say, I guess I could pick that up, or I guess I can pick that up. You got to pick up on that and pick up on the way they've sort of said it and think, okay, now what does that mean? Does that mean that they're just going to take it up? But feels like there's a reluctance there in terms of them wanting to pick it up. So you've got to explore that a little bit more, okay? So you've got to think, why is that? Because it might turn out, like I said, the test that they're currently working on, a bit bigger than they thought they would. They were not comfortable sharing that with, in front of the whole team, but you can have a chat with them afterwards if that's the case, but they didn't want to say it initially. That's why they just said, I guess I'll pick it up. So, or there might be the case that they have, there's another issue there. And again, there could be inter-team problems between developers. It could be anything. So it's up to you as a Scrum Master to really understand that and make sure that doesn't become a blocker for the team. And that highlights another thing. The job of a Scrum Master, one of the things that Scrum Master does is they create ownership within the team. And one of the ways they do that is by asking the right questions in the right way. So you wouldn't go as a Scrum Master to a team and say, look, I've created a plan, a delivery timeline. This is what we're going to do. And this is when we are going to release. Okay, here you go, guys. Here's the plan. Go ahead and execute it. That's not your job. Your job is to ask the right questions. Okay, so what do we need to do to get delivery done? What is stopping us from delivering on this date? And so on. Because generally you'll be dealing with multidisciplinary teams, all their own disciplines, all experts in their own fields. You might be an expert, perhaps you're a programmer, or you have a degree in programming like I do, and so you might understand the dev work slightly better. Okay, there might be some disciplines you understand slightly better, but you're not going to understand each of those disciplines. And so that's why you rely on the experts, your team, to tell you about the delivery timeline. You don't make it yourself. You ask for the input. So it's about asking the questions. And again, by asking those questions, you are creating ownership from the team on that delivery timeline, which you wouldn't have if you just simply presented it to them. Okay, so A, you'd probably be wrong because you probably missed out loads of things because you're not an expert product designer or an expert user researcher. And B, you haven't created that sense of ownership by the team. They just have something given to them. The other thing is that depending, sometimes even on the time of day, the time of year, the team's energy levels will be different. So you have a session and the team's energy levels could be super high and you can get a lot out of them. Another time you might have a session where it's just very low and very slow and very painstaking to pull out that information. Again, you've got to change the pace. You've got to mix it up a little bit. It's your responsibility to read the team, understand disengagement, and address that disengagement by the way in which you run the session. You don't necessarily have to call it out in the session. It's all about how you run that session. And one of the main things that you do is shield the team from distractions. But this can be a little tricky sometimes because you've got to understand what are distractions and what aren't distractions, and are you over shielding your team? Okay, so you've got to have a certain amount of pressure on the team for them to perform well, but you don't want overpressure, and that's where you come into managing that amount of what information filters into the team, what doesn't filter into the team, all for the aim of removing any uncertainty, because that's what they are: distractions, uncertainties. You form a block around the team to prevent that, but you do allow some things to come in, because again, it's important for the team to understand what's going on. You're not a gatekeeper necessarily for everything. You allow some things to come in, but certain things you block. And then finally, you just try and make things fun, because everyone's at work and everyone has different feelings about being at work. But you can make it fun. There's no need for the meeting to be boring. You can have a retro, have nice themes in retro, do all those sort of things. Make it fun, make it enjoyable, and make it so that everyone is happy to participate. But then again, that's your judgment call based on the team. It's going to, having, I don't know, a Barbie retro is going to work for some teams, not going to go down well for the other team. But again, that's for you as a delivery manager to read the room and proceed based on your reading of that room. So when I joined as a Scrum Master, I had a sharp learning curve. The first 6 months was a massively sharp learning curve in terms of going from being an educator into being a team. And some of the things are transferable, some not so much. And so, for example, as an educator, you are the one providing the answers. As a delivery manager, you are the one asking the questions, which yes, you do as a teacher, but you're also the repository of information as a teacher. As a delivery manager, you're not. You're simply asking those questions. And I had skills in answering questions, but the temptation was always to take a more of a leading role within the team in terms of development, which again, is not what Scrum Master does. And I faced a bunch of other challenges, which I can talk about in another video, in terms of getting to where I am now, which is super comfortable in terms of who I am, my role, and how to make a team effective. And that's partly through experience, but also partly through the sort of solid results that I've gotten as a Scrum Master. And if you're thinking about changing career, I know that from what I know now, I could do a much better career change, and I've talked about ways to get a better job and how I can help with that. But this is more about when you get that job, how to make that switch between your your previous role and the role that you've gotten, because that is a tough switch, and I found that really tough. I had a really difficult 6 months, but what I can do as a coach is help you, guide you through those first 6 months to make it a much better experience for you in whatever role that you go ahead and get into. So again, leave a comment if you are transitioning to a different role, and if you want, get onto my site and message me about a one-to-one consultation. All right, thanks for everyone for listening. I hope you found something useful there. Make sure that you think about what a Scrum Master does and what a Scrum Master doesn't do, and make sure you focus on making the most out of that role and giving the best based on the tips in this video to your team. All right, everyone, thanks for listening. I hope you really enjoyed that. And if you disagree with any of that and you think actually the Scrum Master should just be a team secretary, then add a comment. Let's get a discussion going. Thanks for listening. Make sure you press like and subscribe, and I'll see you all later.